Hello, hello, JJ DiGeronimo here, and today we are talking about the body, about dance. We're going to be talking about the spiritual instrument that really sits within us. And I think that is such a powerful tool for so many women that have grown up dancing or have grown up doing things, sports, or any other type of movement with your body. I am with Allison Pagano today. Allison, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to being here and having this conversation.
The thing that stuck out to me most about what you do is you call the body a spiritual instrument. Can you talk a little bit about where that came forward for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, this was something I discovered early on, probably in my 20s, as I was on a bit of a healing journey, not intentionally, but I had a pretty intense eating disorder at that time in my life. I was about 20 years old. And I was actually here in Australia at the time doing part of an undergraduate degree. And we had an incredible Indigenous woman teach us about there was this, we had a course called Spiritual Well-Being, which was amazing to jump into in the late 90s when people weren't having that kind of conversation, or so I thought. And she gave us these tools of exploring our inner world in a way that I had never had before. And the main thing that I appreciated about her was that she really had the capacity to hold big space. So you felt very like, it's okay for me to bring all of my stuff here. And that was something also I hadn't seen before. So through that exploration and journey, I basically started seeding in what is now embodied dance, although that wasn't the intention back then. Was I'm going to create a movement, and no idea. I was just didn't want to hate my life and body anymore, and I knew that I was needing a different direction, and it wasn't going to be found through a nutritionist, and it wasn't going to be found through a typical counselor. So I really took it upon myself to use the tools that she gave us, which were very much energy-based, chakra-based, transcendental meditation, and started really befriending these aspects of me that were a bit inaccessible. And I did that through conscious choice because we had to present at the end of the semester this, what our concept of the divine was. So this was like, I better get in there and I better understand what I'm doing here. I really respect this woman and I want to bring something true. So it was really through exploring the body and realizing that the body held different information than my mind did. And that was the first time that I really got a sense of, oh, okay, so there's this whole other stream of intelligence that I was never told about or never touched before. And here it is alive and speaking to me and really basically leading this healing process. And of course, I couldn't articulate it like that back then, but that was exactly what was happening. Should I keep going?
I love that. So I'm just curious, like, how was it because you were so quiet, or how did you tap into this other stream of information?
Absolutely. So I just got very curious about what was there and what was actually the root. And this has always been my anchor in terms of the healing work that I do is if you want long-term healing, there's a couple of things that have to be present. The first thing is really wanting to understand what the root is, because if you don't get to the root, you're just doing Band-Aid work, right? And it's not always that you can touch into the root immediately. Sometimes you do need to go through layers, especially if there's some intense trauma there. But when you meet the root layer and you meet it with the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body all at once, you have a greater capacity for neuroplasticity, for a new change, for something to be reactivated through you. These are things that I brought in and understood later on through body language and doing body work. But it was really through the curiosity of how do I meet these parts of myself that I've silenced? What is actually in there? And just listening and being with what I could feel and what I could sense. And I let myself move with and express what I could feel and what I can sense without words. And it allowed me to touch into something that felt so truthful that the truth of it began actually reconfiguring my stories. And it gave me this greater sense of who I really was and the deeper essence of my own power, which I had never touched before. So
Mm.
it was really just, again, a lot of curiosity and a lot of being fed up with not having any other understanding or support to really figure it out. So it was like, I'm going to take it up and see what's here because I'm done. I'm done with this way of being right now.
I can understand that. I think
Mhm.
so many people in my friend group are dancers. So many of my nieces and nephews are dancers. I mean, it is the industry has really taken it, some teachers more than others, to extremes. And I
Absolutely.
feel like the fact that you've gotten to the point where I'm just not doing this anymore, like I need a different route, I need a different path, but I still want to be part of this community. So I'm are you laying in bed? Are you dancing? Like, when
Yeah,
does this
sure.
come to
So what it looked
fruition for
like
you?
way back then, what it looked like, and I want to say God, source, whatever word you use, provided a beautiful opportunity because our class was actually held in a dance studio because where else were you going to put spiritual well-being on campus? It was held in a dance studio. So I just knew when I got asked to how do I touch the divine, I knew that it had to be dance and I knew that I was going to be uncomfortable. So I would just go into the studio. I found an epic piece of music that brought all of my feelings out. And I just got committed to being with the energy center. So basically I went in through the doorway of the chakra system and I started to get really clear that, oh, this is what's going on in my solar plexus. My solar plexus feels all condensed and shut. And I can't even touch what's in there. And my throat feels the same way. Huh. What do how do I move what's in there? And I just started really being fully present with it and interacting with what I could sense and the layers of emotional suppression that were inside of that. And I started giving them a voice through movement. And sometimes that looked like crying, and sometimes that looked like being fiercely all over the room, and sometimes it was very slow and gentle. And the thing that about it that was so beautiful is I wasn't dictating a process through my mind, but I was following the prompts of the body. And this was something that I didn't, have experience with before. It wasn't something that I knew how to do. I was just on the path of listening and seeing what came and being committed to the truth of it.
I think that's beautiful. To me, that screams mindfulness, it screams meditation, it screams present
Mm,
moment, like you just
mm.
were in the moment and in the movement.
Right, right. And then so what ultimately ended up happening was that I showed this to the class, how this half choreographed, half improvised thing. I got so involved in it, I actually sprained my ankle coming out of a turn because I was throwing myself into it so fully. But what happened after that moment was there was something about being seen in that vulnerability and that truth that I began to accept myself in a different way, where I was like, I can be with others in this vulnerable place and I could say I'm okay. Whoa, that is a big leap for a person who was completely shut down before that. And it wasn't too long after that my period came back. I started learning how to eat again. And it was just like I never went really back fully into that place ever again after that. It was like a full recovery. So it was quite a monumental experience at that time. And there was a couple of other layers to it, that were also simultaneously happening. But it was really through the dance and accessing that inner truth and meeting something more courageously than I ever thought I could, and walking through the flame of it and coming out the other side and saying, you know what, I'm stronger for doing that. I'm not worse off. I think there's more to this. I think that I can find my, hunger for life again.
Mm. I can feel it. And I think it's so interesting because you were a dancer for so long, and it was like this pivotal point where you actually used your skills, your knowing to help you transform or walk through that doorway.
Mm. Well, I actually didn't start dancing until I was in my like mid-teens. So at that point, I had only been, maybe 6 years into it. So I wasn't like one of those kids that started at 5, and there were some reasons for that. But I was always dancing in the backyard. I was always creating. I was always doing all of that. I just didn't really have the support of, kind of like, well, we should put Allison in dance classes. So I kind of had to figure that part out on my own. And I did get a lot of slack and pushback for starting too late, being told I was never going to be anything or do anything. And I just didn't listen because I'm stubborn, and it's a good quality sometimes. Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about the body and
Mm.
just how you feel about it now in regards to this, I think, initiation or this? I feel like it's a tower moment for you in a lot of ways. So, can you talk a little bit about how you view your body now and how you use it as a tool?
Yeah. So I feel like what happened after that incident when I was in my 20s is I kind of spent the rest of my adult life taking, learning different skills, doing massage therapy, doing different forms of body work and healing and energy healing, and learning a lot of different spiritual approaches, inner child work, shamanic work, alongside all of the dance training I was doing. So over time, I just ended up more or less applying what I was learning to dance kind of inwardly. I wasn't really talking to people about it, but when I was in classes, I was kind of applying what was going on in my body and how could I actually do these different things. So what that ultimately resulted in for me now was finding a method and finding an approach that I can walk people through that's accessible, that allows them to touch the things that they haven't said, to touch the things that they don't feel maybe even permission to touch, and to give them the space and the permission to be to really become who they feel they are on the inside, and allow that to come fully forward. And we do that very much through, again, having, I call it warriors work. You have to have a lot of courage to meet the things that you don't think are acceptable, and to not only honor and see them, but integrate them and say, that's part of me, that belongs to me, and that's okay. And I also found, side note, that that's actually, I know you had mentioned something about holding space. For me, I've realized that's the number one key of holding space, is how much we can accept and integrate what's here right now. And I feel that that in itself has the capacity to shift things for people. Just someone holding space who says, all of you is welcome. Whatever you bring forward right now is good. And I can handle it. I can sit with it. I can cheer you on through it. And it's not just words, but they can feel it, because they can feel that you are in your own process. They can feel that you aren't afraid to acknowledge those things inside yourself. So that's really what I support inside the teacher training, is helping women especially really walk through what that kind of leadership looks like. How do we hold ourselves so well by coming into the place of self-acceptance and safety for all that's here first, so that we can then say, hey, I've got you, because I've been down the river and I know what it's like.
I think that's so magical in the sense of creating the space where you're allowing women to accept, acknowledge, appreciate everything about them. Because I feel like society sometimes, they make us feel like only a portion of us is valid or worth it. And I
Absolutely.
feel like women have so much to offer the world, that doing it in a place around dance, around women connecting, around the chakras, is really so powerful, not just for one of us, but all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel so passionate about that for so many reasons, because I feel that the feminine truly remembering who she is and what she has the capacity for is what this time is all about. And I am on board and I stand for it fully. So anyone that feels that calling, which I feel like there's a little bit of a wake up around women, especially these 5-6 years where people are just feeling really activated. Like, you know what? I feel like I've got something inside me and it hasn't quite been named or nurtured before. I don't really know what to do with it or even how to touch it. Society has told me that my value is in this, isn't told my physical appearance. and how I bring that forward to the world in the image. And there's a lot of ways that you can see that that's still true. And how do we override that once and for all and actually stand in the true power and vitality that we are and bring the change that this time is so asking us to make. And it's not through the fallen systems that we've seen play out. So it's like, okay, all hands on deck. I'm ready to support the women who feel that. So yeah, I get
Yes,
super
and
excited about it. You
yes,
too?
yes. Yes, I think so many of our souls know why we're here. We might
Yeah,
not know why we're here, but I think the fact that you're creating space to reclaim the energy, the intuition, the self trust, and the gifts that we came with, because many of us here now have gifts that are untapped.
absolutely. And it just takes curiosity and the right kind of holding to meet them, to just bring them, give them permission, give them space, especially if you were a person like I was most of my life. I was told, like, oh, I felt completely misunderstood by most people because I could see and feel things that they couldn't. And I'm not saying it was better. It made me feel like I didn't belong anywhere. Right. So when you have this sort of aspect to yourself that you feel so different and it's not being acknowledged in a positive way, you start to shut it down. So, how do we bring that back in an empowering way? How do we bring that back so we can honor it and give it a full voice and say, you know what? It doesn't matter if everybody gets it. This is what I'm here to do. And that's going to be the loudest thing that comes forward.
That feels so good. And you're in the right community. So many of the guests here, Together We Seek podcast, have
Amazing.
leaned into something that did not feel familiar, or not familiar, but did not feel welcome in some of their lifestyles or their families. And they leaned in because they knew it was something really important. And I feel like that crossroads for you of being in that class when that Indigenous woman was there and she sort of lit the light for you, or she illuminated something within you that allowed you to really release and create space for the work you're doing now, is so transformational and so magical.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I hope to even just give back a portion of that. That's really what I feel is that's so important to me, is how do I create that environment so that people can access that, so that they get permission to be inside of that fully.
Allison, I think you're already doing that. So tell our listeners what you do on a regular basis, how they
Mm,
find you.
absolutely. So I currently lead a global dance teacher training using dance as a healing art. It's called the Embodied Dance Teacher Training Certification. We're starting our next cohort actually in a couple weeks in June. I run the offer twice a year. I work online as well as often locally. I live in northern New South Wales, Australia. And the program is in two phases. It's 4 months. The first 4 months is all about embodiment, navigating through permission of your personal stories, your woundings, and bringing inside your gifts. So the first 4 months is really to bring that fully in. And then the fourth month, the next 4 months is all about how do you make a life and a living doing this? That's the thing that, a lot of programs don't teach, is how do you actually get out in the world and then navigate through all of the fears of being seen and being an imposter and putting yourself out there. So I try to give the things that I wish I had, because at the end of the day, I wrote a graduate thesis on embodied dance, and I had no idea how to talk to people about what I did. So it's like, even though I had these decades of stuff, how do you put it out there, right? So that's what I'll call an art form that I help people with as well.
So beautiful. So just remind us again, what do you constitute as embodied dance?
Mm. So embodied dance, in my language, is being able to source movement from your personal truth. And I have a lot of methods and approaches that we like lead the trail of breadcrumbs so that you can find it. It's not about activating trauma. It's not about going to the most extreme thing. We work with what's present in the moment, so that in all the years I've done this, I've never had somebody go to like a trauma that they were like, this is way too much, I can't handle it. Because the nervous system is just showing you the layer that's ready. That's what I've seen in the healing field. So in embodied dance, we have a process and a practice where we go in through a theme, say, for example, something about worthiness. And you would know, we would have a dialogue. We would understand what the emotional components, our stories are. And then we find, where is it activated in the body? How does it need to move to feel fully expressed? These different, perhaps there's grief there, perhaps there's confusion. And we just give that a space to move, to be allowed to be fully there. And then there's a second piece, which is the reclamation, which is, what is the choice now? Now that you've given that part of you a full voice, what are you choosing? So I'm choosing to have my own back. Great. How does that move? How does that express? And taking that on fully, because there's something, last thing I'll say about this, what I've studied in body language is that body language works both ways. So body language is the representation of our inner world. But when we put a new body language, also, it begins to affect the mental and the emotional. So this is why I love dance, and this is why I love even working with what I call personal choreography making, because certain movements also activate certain inner states. So I love the interaction between those aspects.
Well, Allison, this has been so amazing because I feel like so many people think it has to be so linear, spirituality. And I love how you have embraced the knowing, the intuition through movement, through activities that you already do in a way that has helped you probably heal your nervous system in some respects, but also awaken the gifts within. And I feel like this is such a powerful story for people that are in different disciplines or different experiences and may be worried that spirituality cannot come through those paths.
Right. Well, this is a great topic because just briefly, I think so much spirituality asks us to go up and out. When I've noticed that the pathway to, whether you want to call it ascension or self-actualization, is to come down and in. It's all in the base, it's in the lower chakras. And if you can work through those, that's the prerequisite to going up. It's like, we got to do the deeper, the deeper inner belly, we got to get in there and really love ourselves up.
I
Because
love
that's the
that.
place that's
I
often
love
not
that.
really met. Mhm.
That sounds like a book title, The Prerequisites of Spirituality. Down and in,
We can
down and in.
co-author it.
Down and in. I love it.
Down
And
and
I
in.
love that what you're doing. All your links are below for people who are dancers or people who use their body in any capacity. I think it's just so activating for them to realize that their work comes from within, and really working with the chakras and movement to activate that energy is so powerful.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's been really great to
Oh,
have a little chat.
well, this is the essence of Together We Seek, is to show everybody that each path is different, that we all get to spirituality and our inner gifts in different ways. Some of us have crossroads, some of us have indigenous women that show up in our lives that awaken us in ways we can't imagine. And others have, a variety of different activities that happen. And I think I love showing the stories and the gifts and also the enlightenment. So, Allison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
To everyone listening, please reach out to Allison. All her links are below. I feel so inspired that she has crossed our path, and I just love the work that we're doing here. And I hope you will listen again and rate us and really share it with your friends. I feel like so many of us really need to lean into the gifts that we brought down with us. So thank you, Allison, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Wishing everybody a beautiful day.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Allison.